Right now, I'm in the setup function, and I want to start filling in some gaps and adding some features, so that's what we'll do here. In the resource section, I provide a link to the Add Theme Support function. WordPress provides so many features here that we should use. The first one we should add is the Feed Links feature. WordPress will generate RSS feeds for us and always make sure it's updated with the latest post. If you're unfamiliar with RSS feeds, you'll see what this looks like in just a moment. In the setup function, let's use the Add Theme Support function and pass in automatic feed links, which will instruct WordPress to set up RSS feeds. Refresh the site and you'll notice nothing's really changed, but under the hood, there is one small change. Right-click and view the page source. WordPress will generate these two tags inside the head tag that links to RSS XML feeds. Let's click on this link and you'll be taken to this XML document. The purpose of this document is for RSS readers to scan this document. This document contains data about your post. RSS feeds provide a way for users to know when new content is available on your site without having to visit it. RSS has been in decline for some time, but there's still a wealthy amount of people still using this technology. Whether or not you want to add it is up to you. For the most part, it's fast and easy to use. The next thing I want to add support for is HTML5. It can be done by simply calling the same function again and passing in HTML5. If you remember, WordPress will automatically generate HTML markup for the search form if we didn't have a template for it. This isn't the only time WordPress generates markup for us. By default, WordPress will make the HTML generated XHTML compatible. However, if your theme takes advantage of HTML5 tags, then you'll want to enable this HTML5 feature to ensure all markup is up to standards. If you look at the documentation, you'll notice that the second parameter is an array. Every feature can take advantage of the second parameter. It varies. In the case of HTML5, you can specify which markup will have HTML5 applied to it. Even though this parameter is optional, WordPress still wants an array of HTML5 elements you'd like to support. I'm going to copy and paste this array from the example into our code like so. The next thing we want to add support for is starter content. This is a brand new feature in WordPress 4.7. The purpose of this feature is a way for developers to add dummy content when the user is viewing the theme in the customizer. This dummy content will only be available when the current WordPress installation is fresh, meaning that the user just created the WordPress site and hasn't created any posts, pages, or menus. If you take a look at the Add Theme Support function developer page, you'll notice there's no information about this feature. Since it's new, it's lacking in documentation on WordPress's side. Instead, there's a blog post about it. I'll provide a link to the blog post in the resource section of this lecture. Here is what this team has to say about it. One of the hardest things for people setting up sites with WordPress for the first time is understanding what themes are and how a given theme can work for you, especially when there's no content there to visualize. There are also significant gaps between local theme previews, screenshots, and .org previews, even when there are easy-to-use customization tools. It is difficult to figure out where to start and what things are going to be like. To help users along with the path, 4.7 introduces the concept of starter content, theme-specific selections of content to help showcase a theme to users and serve as a starting point for further setup of new sites. Let's learn how to use it. Call the function Add Theme Support and pass in starter content. For the second parameter, you'll need to pass in an array of dummy content. To save time, I'm going to copy in some code and I'll be going over how all this works. Try and follow along. Unlike the other features, this feature in particular requires that you actually set up the dummy content. In this array, you'll find 6 keys, which are all required. I'm going to minimize these for a second so you can get a better overview of what's going on. Each of these keys are assigned arrays with their own settings. The first is widgets. As you may have thought, the widgets array determines what widgets will be displayed in the sidebars we created. We currently only have one sidebar, and that is the JU sidebar. You set this as a key, and its value will be an array of widgets inside the sidebar. If you look at the blog post, you'll see that the developers note what kind of predefined widgets you can pass in. I'm going to pass in 3 widgets called Text Business Info, Search, and Text About. WordPress will automatically generate these widgets with the data they have in their system. Since this is just dummy content, I'm not so worried about what's inside the widgets as long as something is displayed. The next key is attachments. We haven't talked too much about attachments, but attachments is the post type WordPress uses to associate files and images. If you were to go to the admin dashboard and click on media, you'll be taken to all the attachments we have on our site. It's mostly images. The attachments key allows you to simulate attachments without having to actually upload anything into the media library. This will be an array which will accept an array of images or files. The key will be considered the ID. We only have one image, which is the image about. Inside this array is more information about this file image. There are 2 required fields, which are the human readable name and the location of this file. The location is relative to the current theme. If I were to open up the assets/image/about, you'll find the image right here. The next key is post. This will allow you to define some dummy posts. You'll notice that I'm just creating the same kind of posts, just under different names. One thing you'll notice is that for the thumbnail key for each of these posts, I'm using these curly brackets. This will tell WordPress to look for any attachment with the ID of image about. This is the same ID we used in the attachments array. WordPress will be able to make the connection for you. The options key allows you to modify the values in the WP Options database table. Let's open up the WP Options table. I'm going to be viewing this data in Heidi SQL. If you prefer PHP.admin, that's fine. WordPress stores all its information inside this table. Plugins and themes will also store their data here. In this array, the key will correspond to the option name field, and the value will correspond to the option value field. I'm overriding 3 options here. The show on front determines whether the front page will be a page we created or a list of blog posts. I set this to page. The page on front is the option for determining what page from our list of pages will be the front page, since we want to set show on front to page. This key is required. Once again, I'm using the curly bracket style to tell WordPress that the value will be a post. In our case, it will be the homepage we created earlier in the post array. We do the same for the page for post key. The key theme mods is where we can override our own theme settings. These are the same settings we created in the customizer. The key and values are pretty self-explanatory. The key is the ID of the setting, and its value will be the value for that setting. The last key should be nav menus, which allows us to generate menus. We have 2 menus, which are primary and secondary. These are the same menus we registered in our theme. Each of these have arrays for additional settings about these menus. First is the name, which I make translatable. The items are actual links. You'll notice I'm using page underscore and link underscore. WordPress will read these values, and if it starts with page underscore, WordPress will automatically look at the post key and see if we have any pages with the same name. So page underscore about will look for the about page. The link underscore is internal WordPress links. WordPress will generate its own links, which we can take advantage of. The link underscore home is the link to the home page. I also leave this note here that says, note that the core home page is actually a link in case a static front page is not used. That wraps it up for this theme feature. We can't actually test it right away because our WordPress installation is already beyond the point of a starter site. However, we can temporarily restart it without having to do a fresh install or clean our post and settings. Inside the WP options table, there is a value named Fresh Site. Set this value to 1. This will automatically trick WordPress into thinking this site is a new site. After doing that, go to the customizer and you'll notice our site is completely different than what we see on the home page. Keep in mind that this data will only apply to the customizer. It's a way of previewing our site without actually having to force apply these changes. I'm going to set the fresh site to 0 as we're done with the starter content feature.